Bread, the ubiquitous staple of the Mediterranean. Bread, pleasure of pharaohs and platter of the people. Bread, the ultimate sacramental symbol. Bread is life. Bread has brought pleasure to the Mediterranean world for centuries upon centuries upon centuries. And therefore, it's not that surprising to find in the middle of a psalter, filled with songs of praise and poems of lamentation, that fundamental staple that was part of every household, the making of bread. This page comes from a 13th century book of Psalms produced in Belgium, and it shows a relatively simple representation of the mere practical process of making bread. Inside the blue background, we can see a baker leaning over his large tray up to his forearms in dough as he kneads this mass. That mass will be turned into loaves, which will then be put into the oven by the second baker, while perhaps that other amorphous blob in the foreground is more dough waiting to be fashioned into more loaves. Bread was so important to the world that it governed language and it governed law. Think, for instance, of the Benedictines. The Benedictines, who ate in strict silence, developed a sign language for bread. Instead of being able to speak to ask for bread, they developed the gesture of two fingers making a circle with the thumb, alluding to the fact that most loaves of bread were made round. For the special bread, for the bread that was wet with water in order to create a better crust, they would put one hand on top of the other to allude to the wet bread. So this sign language that grew up around the presence of bread. Law was affected by bread because it was so important to the life of the entire community that laws were passed, particularly in England, starting in the 13th century, protecting the price of bread so that the buying power of a peasant's penny would always ensure him a ration of bread. Those laws were called the Assize. Bread was made from many things, but as of the Middle Ages, the desire for bread made of white flour became more and more popular, and we presume that is what our two bakers here are making. But bread could be made from rice, it could be made from spelt. At any rate, this image would have enhanced the experience of the reader of the Psalms, who, while reading whether poems of praise or lamentation, knew that the series of poetry led up to the ultimate image of bread, which was the sacrament of the Eucharist.